Hey everyone, it's Justin Creed from Historic Columbus with another episode of Tuesdays with Justin. Today, for the month of March, we're continuing on with our women's history features. And today I am going to highlight someone that I just really kind of came across today and did some research on. Today I'm at the Rankin House in our archive section of the Rankin House here at Historic Columbus. This is where I go to do some initial research on many of the projects that I work on, as well as finding some of the information out that I feature in these Tuesday videos. And more often than not, Elizabeth and I here at the office, we refer to some books that are some written histories and accounts of Columbus's history as kind of a first try at figuring out where to turn and what direction to go to when it comes to doing additional research on people or places or projects here in town. One of the books that we refer to most is this red book right here. As you can see, it's an older publication. This is called the Columbus, Georgia Centenary. So it's a 100-year history of Columbus, which is featured between 1828 and 1928. And it's written by a lady named Nancy Telfair. The interesting thing about Nancy is that we've never really done any research on who Nancy was and where she came from. And so I did a little bit of that this morning. One thing that I quickly found was that Nancy Telfair is a pen name. Her real name is Louise Jones DuBose. She was born in 1901 near Columbus, not in Columbus. I couldn't figure out exactly where she was born, but she lived until 1994. And she was a well-known poet, journalist, editor, and educator both in South Carolina and Georgia. She was primarily educated in South Carolina, but she moved back to Columbus after her initial education in 1920, and she came back to live with her grandmother and her aunt, Clara Gunby. She was one of the first female reporters of the Enquirer Sun, and she was the first female reporter to ever report on a prize fight or a sporting event here in Columbus. The interesting thing about that story is that that's really the reason why Louise came up with a pen name, Nancy Telfair. The Harrises, Mr. and Mrs. Harris, who owned the Enquirer Sun back then, Mr. Harris asked Nancy to cover the prize fight. And so she was just fine doing that. She was an outgoing lady and always had more curiosity than discretion, as she described. And I've got a little bit of an account that I'll read to you quickly here. She was living with her grandmother at the time, who was a lady from the antebellum days, and she was very skeptical about her college degree, and she thought that working for the newspaper was deplorable. So to add to her distress, she was going to be very upset that she had covered a prize fight, her grandmother would be. And so she telephoned the Harrises, Louise did, and she said that she needed to come with another name to publish the story under. Mr. Harris called Louise a coward, but that it didn't really matter to him, and they started talking about different names that they could use. And after a few minutes, Mr. Harris and Louise at the time decided that Nancy Telfair might be a suitable name because, he said, you tell it fairly, and Telfair is a good Georgia name. So that's the reason behind Nancy Telfair's pen name. And we've got a lot of history, a lot of great accounts of historic figures, as well as citizens in her 100-year history of Columbus, as well as some other documents and papers that she wrote during her lifetime. So with that, we will see you next Tuesday.